Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello all, welcome back to Daily Palace Podcast, brought to you as ever by the Global Sports Podcast Network. I'm Joe Lodge, and as is often the case, I'm joined today by Finn Bowden. How are you doing, Finn?
I'm not too bad, Joe. I heard the Pogues, Fairy Tale of New York, for the first time today.
It's quite late.
I know, right? I was quite impressed, but it's the first of many I'm sure I'll be hearing over the next month or so. But yeah, I'm all good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. I haven't actually heard that many Christmas songs so far this year, but I think that speaks more to the fact that I've retreated into my own flat and avoided the shops for / public life for the last month. So, but yeah, very well in my little bubble here. We're making like Tyreek Mitchell today and hitting a crossover. So we're joined by Iain from the Daily Newcastle podcast. How are you doing, Iain?
I'm doing great, Josh. Thank you very much for having me. I was going to ask Finn. He says he's heard the Fairy Tale of New York for the first time today. Where the hell have you been for the last 35 years? It's on every Christmas, over and over and over and over.
Not like the first time in my life.
That's what you said. That is what you said.
You've got me there. I'll amend that. Yeah, the first time this year. It's almost traditional, isn't it? It's like you just know it's building up to Christmas the first time you hear that song put on. But yeah, one of my colleagues at work, in fact, had never heard that song before, so we put it on for them. But they grew up in Germany, so
Amazing.
I was still quite impressed that they had never heard of that because it's quite famous.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Fairy Tale tomorrow.
He'll be playing you the Fairy Tale of Dresden, is what I was going to say. But great minds think alike, Josh.
So today we will discuss whether the Magpies can nick 3 points from the Eagles' nest on Saturday. Do Eagles have nests? Question for a different podcast. So to start with, let's just have a little review of where both teams are at, how the seasons have started. Newcastle sit 10th, albeit only 4 points off the top four. How are you feeling from a Newcastle perspective at the moment, Iain?
Oh, is confused an adjective I'm allowed to use? We started off playing very disjointedly and ended up with 10 points from the first 4 games somehow. We're dreadful. Outplayed by Wolves for more than an hour and then 2 or 3 fantastic moments in the last 15 minutes and we won. Then we started playing much better, but not picking up any points. Somehow slaughtered Everton 0-0, and then lost at home to Brighton, where Brighton didn't come in. Brighton had 1 touch in our box in that whole game, and they scored from it. So very confused. Fortunately, we thought that everything was coming together because we knocked Chelsea out of the Carabao Cup, their B team, but then we beat Arsenal and outplayed Arsenal. And then we went to high-flying Nottingham Forest and won 3-1 there. So we thought, and they were matched by good performances. That put us a point off the top 4. With a win against home banker against West Ham last Monday, I think we'd have been 6th and felt like we were really going places. And somehow we lost 2-0. We actually were really good in the first half, just couldn't shoot properly. But we were absolutely appalling, dreadful. I don't know if it was on the telly. I guess if you're a West Ham fan, you'd have sat all the way through to the end, but I just don't know what happened. So confused. That's what I am. Still hopeful because I'm an optimist, but thanking my lucky stars that we've got half a chance because we're playing a team in just as much trauma as we are, I think.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of hoping Newcastle pick up, but not this weekend. I predicted them 4th at this going into the season, and I'm already looking silly enough for putting Forest to go down. So I need at least Newcastle to have a good year. Just to sort of follow up on that, as you say, it was 3 wins going into international break. Things were looking a bit better for Newcastle, but the big problem throughout the season has been scoring goals. less goals scored than I think any other team in the top half, and only a few teams in the bottom half have scored fewer goals. Fortunately for you, one of them is Palace. But why is that such a big problem? Is it a problem creating chances, or is it more wastefulness? What's the issue there?
I tell you what, you can't point to goalkeepers having performed out of their skin. It's not that. It is literally missing sitters. We went in one down against West Ham at the break, and I mean, I did the crossover with the West Ham boys. They were predicting 4 and 5 goal defeats when they came up to Newcastle. That's how. And I watched West Ham TV. The 3 guys on there predicted 4-0, 5-0, and 2-0 to Newcastle. One guy wasn't even going to bother going because it's Newcastle. I'm not even going to waste the evening, he said. Fair enough. His loss, I suppose. Even in that first half, before West Ham scored in 11 minutes or whatever it was, we had 3 chances that we should have taken. And it's Isak, who looked fabulous for 3 games, suddenly puts the boots on the wrong feet or something. Maybe a little bit selfish, 1 or 2 times took stuff on himself, which a square ball would have been an open goal for somebody, and he's not normally like that. Anthony Gordon was so out of it, he missed a sitter. Willock played like Stevie Wonder for some reason, and I've got him down as going to be our player of the season, but he was so poor. And again, snatched at a volley which would have been easier to side foot in and missed. So it's just bad finishing, which they appeared to have got right by putting 3 past Forest. That was more like it, but then reverted right back to type in front of the Gallagher end, in St James's Park on Monday night. I think 2008 is the last time Newcastle lost a Monday night game at St James's Park. Something like 27 games in a row without defeat on a Monday night at St James's Park. Although it's not now, it's none. Well, it's just so bemused by it, so bemused as to how you could get into that position and then just not all of them didn't turn up. Shocking.
Yeah. You kind of think that is almost a better problem to have than anything structural, because Isak, Anthony Gordon, these are quality players who you think probably will turn it around. But again, hopefully they wait another week to do so.
Josh, they had turned it around. They had turned it around. They get on opposition. Honestly, West Ham took to the field and looked like sheep in the headlights. They looked like they thought they were going to lose. They didn't start off super confident. We gave them a free header that they scored from, and then missed 4 or 5 glorious opportunities. And they've started thinking about half an hour in. Do you know what? This is our night. This is, and they started getting a little bit of belief. Bowen was fabulous again that night, by the way. I know we're not reviewing the West Ham game, but yeah, they had some good performers. But they are a handful when they're playing with some confidence. But, they should have been blown away, and they weren't. But we're going to put that right on Saturday.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm thinking we're hoping not. Hoping Newcastle give similar gifts to another struggling London side on Saturday. Speaking of a struggling London side, Finn, give us a Palace perspective here. Would you be quite happy to be in Iain's position right now?
I think it's interesting just listening to Iain describing what's been happening with Newcastle this season. And it's a strange one. I feel like the league as a whole this year has been very strange. I mean, if we look at some of the stories of what's going on, especially things like, the reigning champions, Man City, are currently in free fall. I'm still skeptical. I still think they'll do their usual thing of in January, they'll just go on some crazy run of form and sort of get themselves back to where they need to be. Tottenham as well, who 1 minute are losing. Well, Palace's only victory this season in the Premier League was against Tottenham, and then they go and beat Man City. Man United, well, that's a whole other podcast. Like, there's loads of teams doing like loads of weird things at the moment, and like on paper, Newcastle should be. As I think, I totally agree with what you were saying at the beginning, Joe. I had Newcastle as being someone who would be in the top 4, chasing Champions League place again, because I know obviously they were competing in the Champions League last year, and I think the fans really got a taste of that. Really got a taste for that again after so many years out of European competition. And yeah, I feel like the two teams meet this weekend in very odd positions. I think there was a lot of great potential and great optimism going from the summer, and what's transpired is both teams have sort of underperformed. I would say Crystal Palace far more than Newcastle. I feel like Newcastle have managed to get some good results, and as Iain was saying before the international break, it really seemed like they sort of spin things around and were on the upwards trajectory. But I still think. I mean, I would ask you this, Iain. Do you feel Eddie Howe is the person? Do you think he'll still be in charge by the end of the season? What are your thoughts on that? Or do you want him to be still in charge? Do you think that this squad maybe needs someone else with the reins, or are you totally fine and happy with what he's doing? Do you see his plan?
I am. I don't want to be over effusive because I might look really silly in a few months' time on it. This is Eddie Howe's team. He's inherited a championship squad. Let's face it. Half of which is still first team players, but he's improved them so much. He's had so much input on them. I think he's bought really, really well, but he's then improved good players. Bruno, Gordon, and Isak